Now that we've seen broadly how the operations have to be conducted, we'll now come to specific aspects that the RBI has prescribed. Not the RBI, but even the NHB earlier had these regulations, which is one of the most important regulation which governs a housing finance company and the way it operates on the ground is the Fair Practices Code. Now, we've seen in the earlier modules that there is a loan agreement, there are other security documents which give certain rights to the housing finance company. In the loan agreement, you have the right to inspection. If the loan goes into default, you have all the right to recover the loan. You have certain other rights to take particular actions. While all of them may be there, may be contained in the law, and contractually you may have the right to take all these actions, the RBI has said that while you may be right in taking your actions, you also have to be fair in the way you take your action. So you have to have a method also which is justified, and your actions have to be justified compared to the action that you are taking, the reason for the action that you are taking. So the Fair Practices Code again has multiple aspects to it. The first one is the disclosure. So you may have seen in movies or in TV serials that properties get transferred here and there. Of course, there is a lot of exaggeration to that, but people generally sign where there is a cross put. Correct? Most of the people do not even read what the loan agreement is. So many people sign the loan agreement without reading, and even if you read, there is a settled principle of law that ignorance of law is no excuse, and the finance company or the bank can always say that you were supposed to read the loan agreement, you were supposed to ensure that you consciously signed on the loan agreement. While all of this may be in theory, and while the bank or the financial institution may be right in the action that it is taking because a particular clause is contained in the loan agreement, you have to be fair and just. That is why there is a document called MITC, Most Important Terms and Conditions, which you would have seen even when you would have applied for your credit card. Along with the envelope where the card is contained, there is a document called MITC, which is also given as an annexure. MITC is nothing but an extract from the loan agreement which lays down all the important clauses in the loan agreement which you should be consciously aware of. It is just a subset of the loan agreement, but it makes disclosures in a bigger font size, and it contains only those clauses which you are consciously supposed to understand and ensure compliance. It also has a list of the fees that are payable for various things. So fees for generating certain statements, what fees will be payable if you want to prepay a loan or foreclose a loan, if you want certain waivers to be taken, what are the fees payable, etc. So that a person, even if he has read the MITC, will be aware of all the consequences and the fees that he or she is supposed to pay on the loan. So as far as disclosure and transparency is concerned, the MITC is a part of the disclosure norms. Apart from the MITC, there are other norms also as far as disclosure is concerned that the HFCs need to follow. One of them is Comprehensive Notice Board. So for all those who are working in a branch of a finance company or a housing finance company, or those who you visited, there will be a notice board which will be put up, which will contain multiple documents. The registration certificate from the NHB or the RBI, a copy of the Fair Practices Code, grievance redressal mechanism, that if you want to complain against a certain employee, what do you do, how do you escalate, if the escalation doesn't work, then what is the next step of escalation, if that also doesn't work, then where do you go. All those things are put up on that comprehensive notice board. That is again for information so that people have it readily and they need not search for it here and there or go onto the website and pull out these documents. They are available on the comprehensive notice board. The other aspect that the Fair Practices Code also says is that while I may have got my loan at 7%, I may also want to know that what is the general rate at which the housing finance company is lending. So while the advertisement may disclose a particular rate of interest, I want to know that if I have got something higher than the lowest rate, whether the rate that is given to me is fair or not. To ensure this, the housing finance company is also supposed to, on its website, put up the average lending rate, which is calculated in a particular manner, so that the people know that this is the general rate or the weighted average rate at which the lending has happened. So they know whether the rate offered to them is fair or unfair. Apart from all of this, the housing finance company is also supposed to ensure that they make no discrimination based on religion, age, gender, etc. They need to have policies which ensure that there is no discrimination of any nature whatsoever. Disclosure requirements also require the HFC to give reasons in writing if a particular loan has been rejected for any reason. So it is not a compulsion that because a loan application has been made, the HFC is supposed to give the loan. They can reject it also, but for whatever rejections have happened, reasons have to be given in writing. Once the loan agreement has been signed and the disbursement has been made, a copy of the loan agreement along with all the annexures have to be given to the borrower for his reference. So the finance company or the HFC cannot keep it with itself and say that because I have given the loan, you have no right to take a copy. So there is also a reporting which has to go to credit information bureaus, which will detail the loans that you have taken and a particular credit score which you will be given. So the HFCs, because it's a finance company, they will be making this reporting. But before this reporting is made, you also have to educate your customers saying that we will be making this reporting, and if at all your loan goes bad or if there are certain other circumstances, then we will have to make adverse remarks in the reporting also, so that he is aware of it. Not that he or she has a choice, but so that the person is aware. If there is a guarantor if there is a person who is giving a guarantee for the loan, a financial guarantee, which is that if the borrower doesn't pay, the guarantor will step into the shoes of the borrower and will ensure that all the obligations have been paid off. Also will need to be informed about his rights and his liabilities, or her rights and her liabilities. All of this is as far as disclosure and educating the customer is concerned. The other important aspect of the Fair Practices Code is confidentiality. Now, you will understand from the earlier modules that the loan application, when it is being made, documents such as salary slips, tax returns, PAN cards, property documents, details of other assets, etc. have been given to the housing finance company. Now this is all sensitive data. The HFC, irrespective of the fact that the loan has been approved or rejected, is supposed to keep all this data confidential. Just because a loan has been rejected, it does not mean that the HFC can go and throw it away in a dustbin. There has to be a proper document destruction policy also. There are also provisions on customer grievance redressal. So on your website and on the notice board, there has to be an escalation matrix which is put up. Stepwise escalation and ultimate escalation lies to the NHB or to the RBI. The other two aspects which the Fair Practices Code requires, or the fair practices of the RBI require, is the model code of conduct for the DSA, that is the direct selling agents, and the recovery agents. Now, when I started the discussion about Fair Practices Code, I said that the housing finance company has given the loan. Suppose there is a default, HFC is in all its rights to take action as per the loan agreement. Loan agreement contains elaborate provisions on the way they can recover the money. While the HFC may be right in taking its actions, it has to be fair and just also. So while the HFC has the right to recover the money, it can't use coercive measures. So the HFC can't send people with guns and put it on the head of the borrower and ask him to pay up. That is not permitted. While I'm not arguing on the fact that whether it is right in law or no, but as far as these regulations are concerned, you can't do that. You can't also send goons to use coercive measures. There have been various instances in the past. You can go and read the media reports where banks and finance companies have been penalized for using coercive measures to recover money. Model Code of Conduct for Recovery Agents gives a detailed prescription on the actions that the recovery agents need to take. It is detailed to the manner in which they can approach the person, the borrower, the timing when they should approach, which is between 7 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening, the place where they should approach. It also has statements where it says that the recovery agents cannot or should not approach the borrower at a time when there is a function or there is a death in the family. So if there is a marriage function going on, the HFC, even though it is in its right to recover the money and the borrower is a defaulter, cannot go to the marriage function and create a scene over there. Okay, all that drama is not allowed. Apart from the recovery agents, the code of conduct for the recovery agents, there is also a code of conduct which is prescribed for the DSA. Now, DSAs are direct selling agents. They are the people who are the field workers for the housing finance company, and their job is to bring loans and to ensure that the HFC is able to sell higher and higher number of loans. They have their own targets, and you can always say that in order to fulfill their targets or to overachieve them, they may take action which is not right. So again, there is a code of conduct which is prescribed, which they need to follow. When they approach a particular customer, there has to be explicit consent before they start talking about the product. When they approach the customer or the prospective borrower at his or her house, there has to be a proper time at which they go, a proper dress code, and a proper approach in the language and the body language both. The DSAs also cannot start making cold calls. When I say cold calls, it means that they can't randomly start calling up people if the name appears in the do not disturb list, which is prescribed by the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. For all those who do not know, the TRAI, which is a regulator for telecom companies, has this list called do not disturb, DND. When you enroll your name over there, the marketing companies or sales agencies cannot make phone calls to you until and unless there is express consent from your side. So repetitive calls, calling up people at the wrong time, if the person is not comfortable or if the person does not want to take a loan, you start pressurizing that customer. All of this is not allowed as per the model code of conduct for the DSAs. This code of conduct applies equally to the people who are selling the loans and the people who are selling the deposits or any other product of the housing finance company.